My name is Eduardo Alvarez. All of us know that our world needs a makeover. But some may feel that the world is just fine, and we have to wait a little to see it recover to normal. This is also known as blind optimist. Some would like to reset the world, but sooner or later, everybody will recognize the world is upside down, and no new political or economic newness will do anything to renew the world. God has other plans. He is going to renew the world in its entirety. And also, He will also renew the church totally. How do we know this? Jesus Himself has revealed this to a young woman in Italy, servant of God, Luisa Piccarreta, from 1881 to her death in 1947. Her cause for beatification is open in the Vatican, and all her writings have received no objections from theologians officially reviewing her writings. From the very beginning of His revelations to Luisa, Jesus said, quote, "It has been decided by us, the triune God, and it has been decreed, there is no turning back," close quote. To start understanding what Jesus told Luisa, we have to lay a background about God's plans. There are three works of God. The first one is creation. God created the immensity of the universe with the power of His Word. His creation had as its sole purpose the creation of man. This means that everything you see or know about the entire created universe, including this earth and all its contents, mountains, the seas, all the animals, was done to give man living quarters. God did not have any needs, but He wanted to have a humanity with His image and likeness, having a close and intimate relation with Him and humanity with God. So Adam was created with the image and likeness of God, which means that he was living in the divine will of God. He had a human will and free will, but all his actions were according to the will of God. That is, they share the same will, no two wills, but one. Imagine that, God Almighty and created man, one will. It's amazing. When Adam, induced by Eve, decides to make use of his human will, turning his back to God's divine will, he falls into sin, the first ever in paradise, which we call the original sin. Adam had privileges, dominion, and powers the same as God over all of God's creation because he lived united with the divine will. This work of God is called the first fiat, creation. And we know what happened. He listened to Eve and decided to act according to his own human will instead of the divine will. He withdrew from the divine will and disobeyed God by eating the fruit of the tree that would give him the knowledge of good and evil, which he didn't have until then. For Adam, the consequences was that he lost the gifts of God and the intimate relations he had with God, as well as all the divine attributes of God. That is how mankind finds itself now, without the image and likeness of God and born with the stain of original sin. For God, the consequence was that He did not accomplish the purpose of creation, which was to have a creature that would multiply and augment humanity for God to enjoy with children, all to His image and likeness, and living in the divine will of God. God knew that Adam was going to fail this test. Of course, He's God. And He already had planned the next step in His plan of creation. The second person of the Divine Trinity would come down to earth as a God-man Redeemer. 4,000 more years went by until the aforementioned Redeemer would come down to earth as God-man, conceived in the virgin womb of the celestial Queen Mary. She was conceived without the stain of sin and had the fullness of the divine will since her conception. Since Jesus' conception and during His first 30 years on earth, Jesus had a very hard and extraneous and busy works, which will be covered in future video. The last 3.5 years is all we know about His life as recorded in the Bible, when He accomplished the purpose of redemption but not complete. Since many in the world don't know anything about it and have not been included personally in the redemption gained for all by Jesus. This work of God is called the second fiat, redemption. 2,000 more years had gone by when Jesus appears to another virgin, an Italian young woman, Luisa Piccarreta. During a period of 64 years, Jesus reveals to her the plans of bringing to fruition the prayer he taught his apostles, the Our Father prayer, which says in part, quote, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven," close quote. The church has been praying this prayer for thousands of years, but everybody knows that the will of God is not being done on earth as it is in heaven. And that is going to change with a gift that Jesus reveals to Luisa and will be offered to all who desire to receive it, the gift of living in the divine will. Jesus tells Luisa, quote, "I want the prayer which I taught the fiat, voluntas tua, sicur in cielo et in terra," close quote, this prayer of so many centuries, of so many generations, to have its fulfillment and completion, close quote. January 17, 1921. The time has now arrived. The kingdom of the divine will, which is within you, is already here in some most fortunate souls, and continuously seeks more souls ready to give up their own human will and exchange it for the divine will. These most blessed souls, chosen by Jesus and their heavenly mother, who is queen of the kingdom of the divine will satisfy the yearnings of the most holy Trinity in their unified mission of Creator, Redeemer, Sanctifier, by taking possession of the divine will as God's greatest of all gifts, and the will of the Father will be done in them as in heaven, while the world heads its way into the new era of living in the divine will. This era of the third fiat of God. This reality is very exciting. The persons living fully in the divine will be living in heaven while still on earth, with the privileges, dominion, and powers over all of God's creation, with the same that Adam had when he was created in Eden. You would have assurance of salvation, no purgatory for you. This sanctity of living in the divine will is greater than any sanctity of any previous saint in heaven. St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Lisieux, Teresa of Avila, Padre Pio, and others all saw that the perfect sanctity was the union with the will of God. But this gift was not available for them yet. This work of God is called the third fiat, sanctification. This is an introduction video on this amazing gift offered to all. In my next videos, we'll talk about how to enter into the divine will and other truths that we need to know about the gift of living in the divine will. Read the descriptions at the bottom of this video for links that I recommend. God bless you and your families. May your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Fiat.